Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first want to express my gratitude to our sheriff back at home, Sheriff Wayne Ivey. He has been very aggressive in getting out the information. As I think everyone in the room knows, this is all about prevention, because the odds of catching these characters are very, very low. And it's great to see law enforcement leaders like my sheriff, Sheriff Ivey, getting out there, using social media for a positive and making sure that people recognize these scams, as each of you are talking about, so that we don't even have these problems to deal with in the first place. As people are aware, I think they're making smarter decisions. I actually talked to one of my friends today talking about a financial issue. He said, "Can you please give me a call? I want to make sure it's you asking me this question." I think that's a lot of the things that we're going through in this real life world. So I really applaud the locals getting into that. Ms. Griffin, I'd like to ask you the first question. I'd like to focus on your work with the National Task Force on Fraud and Scam Prevention, which I understand is a working group with law enforcement. How do federal, state, and local groups work together so we don't have these different silos, but they actually work in concert so we're not wasting resources and getting this broad message across?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the question. And I just have nothing but praise for the dedication and passion of law enforcement agents working on this issue across local, state, and federal agencies. We heard multiple instances of local task forces where that sort of multiplicity of agencies were working together in a local community, both to try to deconflict cases and to try to raise awareness in those communities. But I can't stress enough how often we also heard that this was a side of the desk activity, that this was happening in off hours through the passion and dedication of those agents, and not because anti-scam efforts were a dedicated priority of the agencies in question. We also heard that there's a greater need for more training of local law enforcement agents on how to work with scam victims. And so that when a victim does come forward to local law enforcement, which is rare, they are treating that victim in a way that A, shows compassion, but B, is able to elicit the information that we need in order to go after those criminals.
Well, thank you. And I'll build in the question in a second. And I know recently I spoke to my other sheriff down in Ivey County, Sheriff Flowers. Almost daily, he has people coming in saying, I thought this person was this person versus that person, and tens of thousands of dollars. This is not a small scam. This is a serious number, at least in the communities that we're living in. And so how do those local sheriffs share information, Ms. Griffin, across the jurisdiction so that one can quickly get the scam out there? I know whenever I get the oddball text, I'll often go to one of my search engines and say, is this number real? Is this real? And it's hard to see. How do we make sure that once we see a small activity, maybe others can chime in on this as well, that we quickly get the information so we stop that scam and it tracks that people are alert enough to say, is this real or not?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And there are multiple resources available for consumers, but the fact that there are multiple resources available for consumers then makes it also sort of a noisy environment. And where do consumers turn to is a real question I think that we need to solve for. There's also not always easy ways for law enforcement to know what to do in that scenario. We talked earlier today about how the criminals who are perpetrating these crimes are often representatives of foreign criminal enterprises. And so the jurisdiction of local law enforcement is quite limited in that case. And so their ability to then liaise effectively with federal agents who can take action is something that we need to create more strategic and streamlined pathways for them to do so.
Well, thanks, Ms. Griffin. I'll just close with this, Mr. Chairman. I really applaud my local sheriffs, Sheriff Ivey and Sheriff Flowers. They're really aggressive getting out there in their local community, and I'm glad that we're raising this awareness. That's probably the biggest weapon we have. As you mentioned, Ms. Griffin, so many of these criminal syndicates are not within the borders of the United States, and the likelihood of recovering these dollars is very, very slim given the realities of these crimes. I know some folks have talked about the CFPB getting involved in this issue. This is a front-end issue. This is not a back-end issue. The likelihood of us kind of coming through with some government agency to recover these are probably pretty slim. But I hope that we can use the coordinated efforts for the future so that when one scam happens, we can use the power of the internet in positive ways so that people realize if you see this number, beware. These are just the challenges of the day. It's frustrating. We have so many great innovations coming with social media, but these are clearly one of the attractions from it. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for highlighting this issue. It's a huge issue, unfortunately, in our district, and the fact that you're bringing this to people's attention will probably save a lot of folks a lot of money. Thank you.